So what we're going to talk about today, and remember, these are our water cooler chats. And so I have chat up, and you're all welcome to talk to us and talk to each other. Shall I introduce the Stop Health team? I'm Marianne. I'm the managing director, and I go by seniority. Greg?
I'm Greg Duke. I'm the database partner for Stopel.
And Ruthie?
Hi, I'm Ruthie Giles, and I am the Associate for Prospect Development.
And Brandy, do you want to say hi? Brandy is new to hosting us.
I can.
Hey.
Hi.
Brandy is our designer. She, when you see our fabulous new business cards, you can think of her. Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about kicking off your annual campaign. I did because this is a water cooler chat. I'm sorry. Your job is to load up chat with questions and comments and conversation with each other as much as with us. And I put up a bunch of slides because last time y'all wanted to be entertained more than discussed, but I hope that you'll jump in. We're going to talk about two concepts in annual giving. Two of the methods that we use to help our clients prepare their annual giving program for this year. And actually last week and this week, that's what I've been doing for my primary client is helping them get ready for their giving day for next spring. First one, the most popular technique that we're borrowing from marketing is RFM. And I'll explain what that is. And so people are still asking us to take a look at it. Of course, I have to sell you something. So we also have a one lecture RFM course in our online workshops. So you're welcome to go take a look. And the second is an overview of channel preference. So that you can figure out how to assign solicitation resources. So are you ready? Okay. So if you already know what RFM is, go ahead and grab your coffee now. In Canada, they say have a coffee. I love that. I think of it as like having a coffee crisp, right? So RFM is recency, frequency, and monetary value. What does that mean? Okay. In fundraising, recency is what is the latest date that a person has made a gift. Right. And we're doing this for people. Companies will tell you what they give to. Foundations will tell you what they give to. Donor advised funds, you're still researching the people that advise those donor advised funds, right? So how recently has someone made a gift? And so if the last time I made a gift was 10 years ago, I'm not a terribly recent donor, right? Frequency is how many times have I given, right? And this is the part where you have to choose when you say I've given, is it when I make a new pledge? Or an outright gift, or is it when I make a pledge payment or outright gift, right? Because if you say pledge payment, then your major gift donors are going to look much more recent than they do if you choose pledge only. However, if you have credit card donors, monthly credit card donors, and especially if you have an old gift system that requires, if I split my credit card gift into 2 or 3 funds, it becomes 2 or 3 gift records, your frequency values can go haywire. Except that if you're the kind of place like public radio or public television, where monthly credit card donors is actually a core of your giving program, then that's how you want to measure it. So you can understand it. Who are your backbone people, right? And then monetary value is lifetime giving. It's how much is the lifetime value of this person's charitable intent, right? And when you say lifetime value, now you have to think, do I include in-kind gifts? Do I include planned gifts, right? Donor advised funds, is that assigned to me? And then matching gifts, is that part of my monetary value? And you have to think about it, right? My personal theory is that if it's a donor directed gift, matching gift, donor advised fund, family foundation, or corporate company, we want to think of those as being directed by the donor, and therefore the donor made the gift and just use that remote instrument. Great question, Ruben. What is the time frame I focus on for frequency? I frankly, I'm getting all excited, count up all of it for a person's lifetime. And so what happens then is that people who have been monthly donors for the last 2 years, they became a part of your program 2 years ago, are going to look much less frequent than people who were monthly donors for 10 or 15 years. And so that becomes part of your, so as you do the measurements yourself, you may say, look, our program really didn't take off until 10 years ago. So we're going to start 10 years ago to understand donors' behavior. The other thing, Ruben, is that you're talking about, and this is, there's a big fat book, of course, that I forgot to bring back into my office. It's this fat, and it's RFM. It's a book called RFM, and it's by a couple of marketing guys. And I've got pages marked everywhere, right? So they do RFM, like you're asking, Ruben, they do RFM by economic cycle. I would think about RFM by presidential term. I did that for a public television station, and it mattered whether it was Republican or Democrat in office when it came to their annual giving program. The other one is by the era of the leader of your program. If you're the United Way, you don't want to measure frequency from before when that United Way president got disgraced because he was taking limos everywhere, right? And I might be aging myself. That might be 30 years ago by now, right? So I go for all lifetime, and that's and you brought up a great question because you gave me a chance to talk about how do we, what slice of the world or what angle do we want to aim our camera at to understand it? And you get to have big discussions about that. So if you bring M&Ms, then you can have a big discussion and have some M&Ms. Okay. So how do we build this? Well, every category, R, F, and M, are each scored 1 through 5. And I'll talk about what those bins are. Okay, ones are your lowest levels. Okay, so your non-donors have a recency, frequency, and monetary value of 1 because it starts at 0. Okay, your high is are the 5s. Okay, and so if you have 5 for recency plus a 5 for frequency, actually, and I simplified it on the chart on the slide. You're looking at what Lawrence Hensey says are your planned giving prospects, okay? And he said this in 1990 something after doing the work in the 80s. We still work in that paradigm. It still holds true for the work that we do for our clients. We're trying to understand planned giving, right? I'm going to give you a little bit at a time, but when I pass, you get the farm, literally, right? Monetary, of course, your highest level donors are your major gifts prospects, okay? Okay, what are some tips to segmenting by frequency, Becky? Oh, you're asking a good question. Okay, this is that book again. Golly, I wish I'd kept it in here. I'm moving offices and my bookcase is still in my old office.
Oh, I have a copy, Mary. Let me go get it.
Can you? Okay. Greg's going to read this book because it's wicked cool. Okay, so segmenting by frequency, or actually thinking about RFM scores themselves, Becky. That's a question I'm hearing, and you can repeat if I don't get it. What kind of RFM scores do you get from your direct mail campaign, from your phone-a-thon, from your leadership annual giving? Do you have a different RFM thresholds when you do personal solicitations versus something else? All right. And Becky, tell me what or kind of organization you're in, because there's also the constituency type, right? And how can you account for outliers and recency? When we talk about the bins, I'll show you that it works. So you're at a university. Okay, so if you want to do segmentation, alumni, graduate alumni, parents, friends, former trustees, volunteers, faculty and staff, what are the RFMs for all those guys, right? If you were a cultural organization, it would be members, donors, endowment donors, docents, volunteers, right? It would go like that, right? And if you were healthcare, you would be grateful patients, grateful families, community members, other friends. It would go like that.
So
Okay.
here's that book. It's
Livy and Pickering. Oh, thank you for showing everybody how thick it is.
Yes, it is. It's definitely a
And I read it.
book. It's kind of hard to hold up here.
I carried that thing around on a plane, man. And I got Yeah, I liked it so much I sent it to Greg.
Yes, it's very interesting. I have to say that it's not just for fundraising, but there's definitely a lot of thought about how RFM works in different fields. And I think, as Marianne said, because you can use this in different fundraising fields, I think you can apply a lot of the tactics in here to fundraising. Yeah, let me put the information in the chat here.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, they're all marketing this and marketing that. They talk about renting lists and stuff, but you'll be able to go, oh, right. You'll be able to translate that to fundraising. Okay. So, and let's come back to Becky's recency question, right? What is your preponderance of new versus long-time donors, right? And so what is bin 5 for recency? What if bin 5 for recency is the top 20% of recency for you starts at 10 years ago, right? And that's one of the questions that both Ruben and Becky are asking, right? When you look, okay, I talked about that. Gifts can be as recent as today if you choose to do that, right? If you choose to do, when you do recency, I tend to choose by date, so I don't have to deal with how many days back was it from today, or how many days back was it from the date download, or whatever data download, okay? And then remember that recency is affected by your pledge date versus your last gift or pledge payment date, all right? And then what is your soft credit? So last year I made a gift, this year I get a batch of gift for you. What's my last gift date, right? And excuse me, when you figure it out, write it down and share it with everybody. So when people come back later and say, yeah, but I don't look at it that way, so turn yourself inside out and make it look like what I want, your answer is we agreed, right? Because that'll happen to you. Frequency is, and then you see how I say over the period of time you're measuring. So this comes back to Ruben's question. We're in, I don't want to say unprecedented times. We're in a paradigm that we haven't seen since the Black Plague, when we have a lot of people dying, we have a lot of job openings, we do not have the labor that we need to do the work that we normally do. And so if you watch the documentaries on the Black Plague, you'd be like, right. And that's why they started inventing machines that do work for people, right? And so here we are, we're gonna start having robots as waiters, okay? So do you want to think about pre-COVID, COVID, in COVID, post-COVID, and we're not post-COVID yet, right? Or do you want to think about it as the economy? Well, the economy's up, well, the economy's down. I once demonstrated that $1 million gifts didn't happen for my university until the S&P 500 was over 1,000. And when it dipped below, I presented that and I said, you know, we should be asking for annual fund gifts from our major gifts prospect. And the vice president said, we already are. So I supported his, I supported that part, or that I validated that decision. Okay. And then here's your pledge and pledge payment question again, and then hard credit and soft credit question again. Okay, you guys are doing great with the discussion, so thank you. Monetary value, and then again, it's the period that you're measuring. So, Ruben, you're in a religious organization, right? Do I remember that?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So for you, what is the you know, what are the studies that say people get more invested in religion during what point in the economy, or what point in world events? Or I mean, how many of us are literally praying for the people in Ukraine, right? So that becomes a question for you. Can you mark time at the start and end? Or you may discover when total giving bumps, that marks a time frame, and you want to go see what was going on in the world that happened for that, right? So that's going to be interesting for you. The monetary score, of course, is affected by soft credit. If I give and my husband gives and each of us gets 100% soft credit, be careful about that, because you're going to double our credit if you count us by household. And that's the thing I haven't touched yet. What if you do what if you do RFM by household, right? And then you have to dance all that dance. Once I get into that, I ask Ruthie and Greg to figure it out with me. Okay. All right. So let's have some discussion, and you're all welcome. It's a small enough group. You're welcome to unmute. Even if you still don't want to come on camera, I understand this is lunch. So I dressed up. so you don't have to. But let's take a look at this discussion, right? Okay, so here's Michael. He's a very large donor, right? Think of him as a something dollar prospect, okay? He makes a 5-year pledge in the millions or whatever super duper is for you, and he makes a payment every year. He's made and paid 3 pledges through his foundation, 5 pledges from his own assets, and his last gift was in kind. So what do you all vote is his recency? And go ahead and unmute and chat away with us.
That'd be a trick question, because if he's pledging in the millions, do you really need him to be part of your annual fund?
Oh, well, yeah, but RFM is not, we're talking about RFM for
Okay.
everybody. Yeah, your entire
Okay.
pool. So he's a 5. He's probably a 5 for monetary value. You know, unless we're up against Bill Gates. And 85 people like Bill Gates, and you only have 100 records in your database or whatever, 1,000 records. Yep. That's a good question, Ruben. Am I really only looking at annual giving? When I do it for clients, I don't, because they want to know, who do we put in major gifts? Who do we put in leadership annual fund? Our precious resource of people to solicit people, right? And then who do we put in automated stuff?
Sure. I mean, the theme is kick off your annual campaign, but I understand we're looking at a broader.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes.
But I would, if it was me, I'd count every gift. I mean, he's making continual gifts, even if it's part of a pledge. The giving is still ongoing, and why wouldn't you count it?
Okay. Do we have other opinions? Do we have anybody else want to make a comment?
Becky Kent had a question in chat. Do we count his foundation gifts in his RFM score?
Right. What do you think, Becky?
It sort of goes to your point about like household, it seems, because wouldn't that be separate? It's like a organization, not an individual.
Right. So if it was this corporate if it was this corporate foundation, right, or if he were on the board of the Times New Union Foundation, I wouldn't count that toward his RFM. But if it's his family foundation that he built it as an instrument to give money away and store money while he thought about where to give it, I'd have to have a conversation about how that affects the numbers.
Right, because it's sort of like an extension of his own giving. It's just through a different vehicle.
Right. Just like a donor advised fund is. Yeah, donor advised fund is Peter's way of, I think of a donor advised fund as a double row cab of a pickup truck, right? I want the pickup truck, but I really want it to be also like a car, so I'm gonna cheat. And I think donor advised funds are like that too. It's like I want a foundation, but I don't want to be that visible, so I'm gonna cheat. Yeah, so. But a person, if I had the Marianne Pelletier Foundation and I were the donor, and there was like me as the trustee and a couple of other family members as trustees, then I would think of that as my gift. I don't know how my alma mater would. Okay, what's his frequency? And Ruben's right. If you're doing this for annual giving only, and you're not doing this to segment all your prospects, these people this year go to major gifts, and all the rest of these people are our annual fund prospects, right? Then would you only look at people who have been in the annual fund program and are not tracked in major gifts? Would you take those major gifts prospects out? Right?
So I'd say you hope your major gift officers are getting annual fund money as well, and not just getting major gifts, right? So they're out there getting 25,000 a year plus 2,000 for the annual fund is what you're looking for, I would expect. But this guy, I think I would not count his pledges. I would only count what he gives.
Okay.
You know, whenever I've done RFM, I've always kicked out pledges and only counted cash. And gift in kind, who cares? No. Sorry. That's
no,
my
I mean, you're right. Okay, so the gifting, I can give a pen to my alma mater, right? I got this at the last conference, right? I can give this pen to my alma mater, or I can give them an NFT that's worth something $1 million. They're both in-kind gifts, but that's not relevant to recency, frequency, monetary value. It's an exception gift, and that's the outlier question that came up earlier. I think it was Becky who asked that. What do you do with these outliers, right? I like
If you
that.
have, if you have someone like this guy that's making these regularly, and assuming that they aren't just like a box of clothes to a thrift store, but something substantial, wouldn't you want to include that in there? It's not. It's more than an outlier. Outlier is kind of like once in a while, but if he's making 9 over, it doesn't say how long the period of time is. That
Mhm.
would seem like it's fairly frequent.
Compared, yeah, if compared to everybody else, if we knew what everybody else's numbers were, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. All right. I'm only on slide 9. Otherwise, I would stay in this conversation. Okay. All right. So how do we do this, right? And of course, I'm going to try to sell you our online course where I walk you through it. Okay. Please forgive me. Or just go buy the class. You're going to be splitting 3 data points into 5 bins each. Okay. And binning is actually a statistical term. Okay. Your last gift date is going to be split into 5 bins. It's going to be the 20th percentile. So if you have 100 gift dates to deal with, right? You have prospects, or you have 100 prospects, their last gift dates are listed 100. You would split them 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Wow, I had to count that while I was talking to you. Okay, so that's how you would do it. And so what you would know then is you would know, where does bin number 5 start for the last gift date? How recent was it? Okay. And then count of new pledges and gifts, or count of payments and gifts, into 5 separate bins. So if each of those 100 people made 12 gifts a year, you would have, oh goodness, I have to do the math, 1,200 records, and I'd split them 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. Greg can do that faster than I can. 60?
Not today.
Okay. Sorry. You're in the middle of trying to do power pivot and you're
There's a horrible someone's blowing leaves outside. So.
okay. And then you take the lifetime giving. It's the same thing. This is an interesting thing to know, because I did this for a one of the schools when I was at Cornell. I sat in front of the director of the fundraising for that school, and I said, listen, your top 20th percentile, this is like SAT scores, right? Where am I in the percentile of people who took SATs, right? Your top 20th percentile starts at $1,500. And, you know, he got red-faced, he got mad, and then we talked about a strategy based on the rest of the work that I did. Okay, then you're going to produce these 3 scores. It's 3 scores. I'm going to say that 100 million different ways, because I get frustrated when vendors do sum the scores up. Okay, so if we have these here, if this is this 10 records, then it's going to be 2 records at a time. Make it into bin 1 and 2, or make it into each separate bin, right? If you have 1,000 records, then it'll be 200 records at a time that will make it into each bin. Okay. It does not compress the highest level donors. And that was one of the questions. What if I go, you know, $10, $10, and then suddenly we have $1 million, Michael, you know, Bill Gates showed up, we have $1 million donor. Well, he's still in bin 5 with his other $10 people. The interesting concept for bin 5 and bin 1, frankly, is where does it start and where does it end, right? Or end is your highest gift ever. All right, and it keeps your range from getting too high. So you've heard me, if you've heard me speak anywhere, I talk about the bell curve of giving, right? So the bell curve of a price of Coca-Cola, a single Coca-Cola, is a pretty tight bell curve. It's like somewhere, I used to know what it was. In my head, it says 60 cents. So I think this is how old I am, right? What is it, $1.50 now? $1.50 to $3, depending on whether you're at the airport, right? That's the price. The price of a gift is, you know, a penny to something billion. You know, we haven't hit $1 billion yet, I don't think. But the right tail of the bell curve goes to the other count. Okay, so this, when you bin it, you're actually putting it, these are your highest level donors. All right, I may have hammered that too hard. Let's find out. Okay, this is a slide that I borrowed from Sally Boucher when she was at Wealth Engine. She and I both presented on RFM. And so this is how she says it, right? So if I'm a low frequent donor, especially if I'm a median at best monetary, you need to acquire me or reacquire me, right? And then once we get into the green, I'm a high level donor, not as frequent, not as recent. You want to cultivate me or research me to see who should be moved out of annual giving into major gifts. And if you reduce your annual giving workload, you're making it possible for your team to focus on the right people. But also, if you reduce your any given workload by shunting the right prospects over to major, or assigning the right prospects over to major gifts, then you're also making major gifts work better. Yes, bins work best for all 3 categories versus ranges. Yes. Because what you're saying is this is the 20th, if you think about your SAT scores, or what's the other thing? Income, right? The 1%. It's the same. We're doing the same thing. What is the if I'm going to be the top 1% of income earners, what does my income start at? It's the same thing. If I'm going to be the top 20% of donors, what does my gift amount start at? What is my most recent gift dates start at? What is my frequency? And remember that low frequency and high monetary, especially if you're counting pledges only, then you're going to get major gifts prospects over in low frequency. And even in the middle of the date ranges, because they made a pledge 4 years ago and they're still paying it. All right, so this is the pivot table setup, right? So if I take the constituent ID and I just add under the values field date, and then I do set field, I forget what the expression is, set the field, and then I want to do max of date, sum of pledge, and count of pledge too. That's my frequency. Which is why it's important for me to not download adjustments. If we've agreed not to use matching gifts, take those out. I don't want to do foundation and corporate gifts either, right? So I have to be careful about these 2 values, well, actually all 3 of the values. Okay? Isn't that cool? Okay. And then when I do the bin estimation, these are the percentiles. And so you can freeze this video right here when you rewatch it. This is percentile including, and then the range that has the from the pivot table, right? And then the 20th percentile, 0.2%. And then frequency, that's the next one, frequency, H, 0.2% or 0.2, which is 20%. And monetary, and that's on this sheet, it was I. So you're gonna have to figure out what your columns are, right? And here's my bin number. And now I've estimated my bins. And so now I have a lot of information about who my best donors are. Do we have questions or comments right now? We don't have time for you to do it with us. Non-donors are 111. We only have 5 bins. The other way I've talked about non-donors are to say of the donors. Non-donors were excluded of the donors, right? But non-donors are 111. They because we start
Yeah, that
zero.
was actually a question I had. You know, do we exclude when we have a percentage of donors, you know, the zeros? So I guess we do. Just to clarify.
Because remember that. Let's see. Here's the 111. We want to acquire these people. We don't want to ignore the non-donors. We want to acquire them. Yep. Great question. Now this is where you get to do nested ifs. So if you go home every night and your family says, you know, what did you do today? And your answer is, I went to meetings and there were no M&Ms, right? Now you can say, I did nested ifs. And check and see how I go. So if the row that I'm looking at, this last gift date is less than what I had on this table, which I have at the same page, is less than this, then make them a 1. Else, if it's less than this, for 1426, make them a 2. 428, make them a 3. See how short these recencies are? That's because it's converted basketball data I was using. So yours you're going to have wider spread. Okay. So that's just for one bin assignment, this recency bin assignment. And then it says, okay, this person is a 2, this person is a 4. All right. And then you'll do it for each of these. Okay. Oh, great discussion. Now, when you're done, you want to do concatenate. You want to do the recency and quote hyphen and quote frequency and quote hyphen and quote monetary. Why do I want to do the hyphens in here? Because the minute I say 222, people are going to think that it's 222. And that does not work. That's not the RFM. The RFM is recency of 2, frequency of 2, monetary of 2. There are some vendors that like have recent RFMs that are hundreds and 300 and something, and I don't know how it works for them. My preference is always 5 bins. Okay. So segment your constituency. Now there's some discussion. Shouldn't I just not include the non-donors? Well then, so what are the score of the non-donors? Or do you just say, look, these are non-donors, I'm going to put them over in this bin, and when I'm ready, we're going to work on acquisition methods. And that's the segmentation piece, right? Okay. The good news is you're in charge. It's your universe. You don't have to do what I say, right? My job is to tell you the likely consequences. Okay. Let's talk about channel preference. Does anybody tell me what time it is? What am I doing? Oh, okay. Let's talk about channel preference. We're halfway through and that's good. Okay. Joshua Burkholz taught me this term, and it's a marketing term. What is the preferred channel for acquiring me or renewing me or just getting me to give? Okay. And it could be you're not going to get me to give unless I go to the gala. When I go to the gala, I'll hand you my check. Or when I'm on my way to the gala, I'll add on my gift. And by the way, that means that if you don't have a data gala, then I'm not giving. It might actually happen. Have we tried calculating this in Tableau or just Excel? Becky, I haven't done it in Tableau. I've done it in Power BI. I haven't done it in Tableau yet. If you have, would you want to be a guest next year? A guest speaker?
No, I have not done it, so I was just curious.
Oh, okay. We've done it. Power BI has really good. Power BI has really good query language. Like I can do queries on this over here in Power BI, and then I can bring it back to the dashboard. In Tableau, it's all graphics, and I have to compute, right? So I would have to think about how I would do it in Tableau. That's an interesting challenge. And of course, Greg is going to beat me to doing it in Python. Okay. We do have a little bit of internal rivalry.
Yeah, maybe.
I did do it in R, of course. All right. So channel preference. You want to solicit me by the method that I respond to. You don't want to solicit me by the method that works for you. And by the way, we all have the habit of, we're going to start with direct mail, then we're going to make phone calls. Or now we say, I'm dating myself again. We're going to start with an email, then we go to direct mail, then we go to phone-a-thon, right? What if it's, I just gave through direct mail? You're going to start with direct mail with me. And then you go to something else, okay? You're going to solicit me when I give. When I did a presentation to join the DataTel company, my presentation was on, what are donor trends? And one of the questions that I asked the group is, how do you decide when you're going to give? Is it when you're asked, or do you make all of your charitable gifts in December? And my soon-to-be boss said, I make all my charitable gifts in December. And I said, I respond to the ask if I have the money. Okay. So if I hear from you every September and I give to you every September, then write to me in September. Don't change your mind. Okay. And solicit me for a program that I'm interested in, not a program that you assume that I'm interested in, a program that you'd like me to be interested in, a program that, it would be really good for me as a person to be interested in, the program that I'm interested in. If I gave to it before, ask for it again. Okay. And then consider how to make the messaging specific. And when we did our sentiment thing, we talked about that. Okay. So this is just channel preference. This is actually by email, but if we think of these channel preferences by, let's say this one is email, this one is direct mail. Oh, I'm sorry. These are our gift amounts. And then I split them out by their email. These people don't have an email. I split them out by their email domain. Oh, birthday giving is big. Oh, birthday giving is big. My local habitat benefited from my birthday last year and the year before, because I said, for my birthday, give to my habitat. So yeah, you're right. Okay, right. So this is old data. So of course I don't have text giving, I don't have crowdfunding, and I don't like have what Becky recommended, you know, giving through Facebook, although Facebook doesn't tell you, right? It's not the same. You don't get the same kind of data. But we have max and mins and we have means. So, you know, the email is best for people who with a .com address. The direct mail is best for people with no email address and for people with a .com address and people with a net address. Why would I waste my time? Email is good with people with a .edu address because of course that's how they all talk to each other, right? I can't believe they decided to close the cafeteria at 1:15, you know, that sort of thing, right? Okay. How you guys doing? Let's talk about timing. Okay. And this is one of my illustrations of what we call confidence interval, right? The question that was given to me by the direct marketing guy was, after we send direct mail out, how soon can we start calling? And what I did was, what is the confidence interval, the 95th percentile of gifts that come in from that direct mail piece? And the answer was between 40 and 58 days. So instead of waiting 60 days to start calling, and there we're bringing in $2,000 a night. So giving him 2 extra days, right, or 3 extra days was brilliant. Okay. And then the phone-a-thon came through, and this is a very short time period. And then look, there's all this time to cultivate, educate, acquire, assuage, you know, try events, whatever. Okay. When I did the study about what cities actually sent the gifts back fastest, it was the largest cities in the country. So, you know, those are the mail centers, right? So I get the mail early. I get the mail sooner than everybody else. So I send my gift back sooner than everybody else. I took that as confounding to the location of the post office's processing centers. Okay. So what do we think about timing? The best day to email is Friday. I'm telling you, the best day for me to have a meeting with my team is Friday afternoon. You guys are not interested in talking to us Friday afternoon. But we like to spend our weekends doing a lot of our creative work, right? What email domain, job title? This morning I was, for my primary client, I was taking job titles and I was splitting the title itself into certain words. And I'm going to see which words are related to more likely to give to Giving Day, right? Phone area code's no longer valid. I mean, nobody has the right phone area code anymore. What hour of the day? And so when I ran a phone-a-thon program, we discovered that if we called people with children after 8 o'clock at night, most of the time we got, I'm putting my kids to bed, get off my phone. So we tried to start with them. And we went, and then we would crawl across the United States as the evening got later so that we would not annoy people at 8:55 p.m. when we had to shut down at 9. We would be talking to people at 7:55 p.m., right? And this is, when do you send the email so it doesn't get drowned out by all the other crap, right? And when do you send the text? I mean, think about a momentary thing. I mean, TikTok, or not TikTok, what is that thing? Snapchat? It goes up for like 90 seconds and all your friends make fun of you and then it goes away. I mean, a text is just here and gone. I mean, it's saved on your phone, but it's like, and then the New York Times pops up, breaking news. You know, the streets you know, the street sign got changed, right? So you've got to think about making sure that it's at the right time frame. And that's the way to do that, is to test it. I remember the day that we actually stayed late and we called Alaska, and she was so happy to hear from us. She gave us $1,000 with a credit card over the phone. Just saying. Okay. And so if you think about day of the week, this is the tool here is SPSS statistics, but these are just, you know, email gift amount. Day of the week. Here's one gift that's an outlier, but look at the bulk. It's like Wednesday. Write to me on Wednesday. My email floods up. When I come in on Monday, I have to deal with everybody and everything, right? But on phone-a-thon, it didn't matter, Tuesday and Thursday. It used to be back in the old days, Thursday was payday at the factory, and almost everybody worked at the factory. And none of us were, well, not a lot of us work at the factory anymore. Okay. And then you have to figure out what to do for donors' interest, right? Please give money to us, and we're just going to use it for whatever we want. That's the annual fund. No, we want that. We want unrestricted giving. But Gen X started saying, I'm going to start my own nonprofit because I'm going to be in complete charge of how the money's spent. Okay. But if we talk about, this is an alumni survey. If we talk about this, you know, what do you, and I just took out the parts of the pie, the pie slices that said, this is my high priority. Okay. And so annual fund, whatever, but faculty recruitment. Yeah. I want to have a better faculty member than that professor, or I want to have another professor like that professor. Right. And scholarships. Yeah. Benefit the kids. Right. And look at dormitories. I mean, the dormitories was a core essential need. Like there was, you know, terrible, and renovation, you know, whatever, but you give to people. Now, this is the Penelope Burke's statement right away. It's like, you have to do donor centric. And if you don't do donor centric, then you're not going to raise money. The catch is if you really need the money to build the dormitory, what are you going to do? Right, and then you change the dormitory fund to the student living experience fund. That's what you do, right? How you guys doing? You guys are quiet. Should I have just done the whole thing on RFM? Okay. So how do we figure out donors' interest? Well, what is the largest percentage of lifetime giving? What fund is it to? What campaign is it to? What department is it to? I mean, one of the gifts that I hope to make in my lifetime, there's a sleep center at the Krause Hospital up in Syracuse. And in order to do the sleep study, you have to have a family member with you, but the family member does not get a bed. Family member sleeps in a chair. And I'm like, oh, thanks, Adrian. I'm like, you know, and I had to do this. And I'm like, I am going to donate cots, man. And super duper pillows, right? Okay. What was the last 3 years giving? What was it focused on? Okay. The Red Cross knows that the one gift that I've ever given to the Red Cross was for the victims of Haiti. So they're not going to come after me for blood. Well, they do come after me for blood, but they get my blood, right? But they're gonna remember that that's disaster is of interest to me. Okay, what giving interest is closest to my donor, my donors closest to our program need, right? And then ask them, right? Or do you know them? Has anyone thought about? Let's see, Sabine. Has anyone thought about donors to support effective altruism, giving by overall outcome effectiveness, not your preference? No, Sabine, I have not. And now I'm going to go read about that in case there's some analytics to be done to help somebody figure that out. So thank you. Take a look at that, everybody. That looks good. Okay. Okay. Think about the message. And this is the part, this is why I've done so much work in sentiment analysis in the last few years. Chris Marshall, when I worked with him at Cornell, he said, I don't want to go to reunion with my classmates. And I agree with him. Frankly, I go to reunion. I'm the class of 84. You know who goes to reunion with me? The class of 89. I wasn't there when they were there. I graduated, right? Or the class of 79. They graduated before I showed up. If I'm going to go, I want to go with the class of 83, 82, 85, and 86, because those were the people that I stayed up all night at the dorm with, drinking coffee and complaining about my angst, right? But the other thing that interests me, with him, it was a swim team because he was a swim coach, right? With me, it's the radio station. That's how to get me to go back to campus. The radio station guys say we're going back to campus, and I was a DJ, right? The other thing is there's no excuse in any way in our modern database era for somebody to call me dear friend. None. I don't care. All right. And by the way, dear Marianne annoys me too if somebody doesn't know me, but that's my age, right? It's dear Miss Pelletier, right? But that's my age. That's not about people, okay? Dear classmate, you know, No, not interested. And there was actually one program where I stopped. I wrote them back and I said, doesn't it stink that, thanks, Adrian. What doesn't it stink that, you know, that when you have a database program and you have a corporate donor, right? We were giving through Stop Hell. It's hard to attach the name to the list because that letter said, Dear Null. Capital letters, Dear Null. Like, if that's what you think of me, you know? All right. We know that athletics is very important to you. No, it's not. You don't know that, right? You better know that, right? Because you contributed to athletics for 60% of your giving, we wanted to let you know that we're doing these things for athletics and around athletics and with athletics. And wouldn't you like to help? Right? Okay. And then aim the message, right? So if I give my credit card, ask me to do it again. Set up a regular routine. If I give my check, get the check into there. Oh, and Ruthie's right. An organization knows her, doesn't know her if they say, Dear Ruth. When I was in my 20s, I had a roommate. His name was Ernest Roderick, and we called him Rick because his father was Ernie. And so the bill collectors would call because this was the 80s, and that's what we all dealt with in the 80s. And they would say, Can I speak to Ernest? And I'd say, No, you can leave a message with me. And the guy goes, Why aren't you letting me talk to him? Like, because you called him Ernest. So then the guy hung up and he called back, Can I speak to Ernie? You have the wrong number. I had so much fun with him. Because my friend's name was Rick. You know? He said he wanted his son to be named Rod. Oh, okay. And that's the end of this presentation. I'm sorry. So that's the end of this. So what do we think? We think we have 12 minutes for discussion. Is there anything you want me to go back over? Do you want me to talk about something? Agreed, Sabine. People are leaving? Hey, talk to us.
I like our next session. I didn't know what our next session was going to be about there. Scary moments in fundraising.
Oh,
Are we allowed to? Are we at Stuff allowed to bring our own scary moments? Because boy, do I have a few.
absolutely. Yeah, we're celebrating. When we set up the themes for the year, we're celebrating Halloween. So.
Okay. I do have an RFM score. I like using RFM. The only problem I have with it is for the monetary around the fifth bin, because you're cramming in everybody from the 80th percentile to the 100th percentile. And in my experience, that covers pretty much everybody who gives at, major gift level or higher.
Right.
The other thing is that 20% bin, while it sounds like a pretty small slice of your donors, that usually ends up being like 95 to 100%, 95 maybe to 99% of your total giving. Because your most of your gifts are going to come from your handful of top donors.
Right.
So I guess my question is, that means that your other four bins don't really mean that much when it comes to your actual giving percentage.
Yes, but it does mean those lower bins do represent your fan base. They're more often than not your unrestricted giving. So what we leverage those, first we leverage those for getting renewal and loyalty. The second is that when we go to do grant proposals, we say we have this many donors. Those people are still important. And the third is when we raise the unrestricted amounts, that's where we're getting.
I guess my point is there's not too much difference between a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 4.
Oh yeah. That could be fair. I mean, the thing is like, what are you going to do with a 3 versus a 4? Are you going to say that 4s get personal cultivation so that we can see which ones of them would be interested in speaking to major gifts, right? So if I had a big enough staff to do leadership annual giving, the 4s would be interesting to me. The other thing that the other pieces, you're right, that we focus a lot on the ones. Let's go acquire these donors, or let's get these donors reinvigorated. 2, 3, and just like I don't know if you remember when Bobby Strand talked about the waistline of a giving pyramid, that we have a lot of gifts at the top.
I can picture her saying that, but I can't remember where that was from. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of donors at the bottom, and then in the middle, we just have this waist, this narrow waist, because we don't ignore those people. So your 2s and 3s are people that we're going to feel like ignoring. But which 2s can we move to 3?
And they're not people you do want to ignore, especially if they're giving frequently, right?
Yeah. It's deciding who they are. But the other thing is when I have actually had, I mean, the question that Ruben asked earlier about frequency, does you really need 5 bins? I've had clients where we only had 3 frequency bins. It just didn't have enough data.
Yeah.
And so if you say, that this doesn't make sense, our donor list is so small, we don't use, like, I have one client, they have 900 records in the database, right? It wouldn't make sense to have 5 bins, So, but with those bins, we're going to make some decisions about how we're going to work with them. Yeah.
No, I've broken it up somewhere else I've worked before in a different way. I mean, similar but different. Like, there was an RFM, it was for a university, an RFM for them against everybody, and then an RFM just against their classmates. So that sort of helps with the problem you're talking about, Greg, like a little bit, like you can see where they rank within their class. So yeah, because the classes are maybe a couple hundred people versus 80,000 people. So it helps a little bit. It's not perfect, but it helps.
Sure.
So Courtney's asking, is there a way to measure success using the RFM scores, like with segmenting LIBONs? Can we show that number of LIBONs renewing? Yeah. If you measure the overall RFM scores for your LIBONs and then measured which ones moved up, like Greg is describing, we had 20% of our LIBONs moved up in the RFM from an M from a 2 to a 3, or from recency or frequency from 1 to 5. We renewed them. And there are other ways to look at that as well. But if you're segmenting LIBONs, figure out their RFM scores. You might find that the ceiling was 3 years ago, and then you go, well, what was going on 3 years ago? Well, 3 years ago we had the change in leadership, or we had something in the news, or we had, and then you can say we're recovering from that, or we had new staff, right? That's great. I'm going to chew on that question, Courtney. I'm going to wake up at 2 in the morning. So if your ears are ringing at 2 in the morning Eastern time, it's me going, how do I leverage that to talk about success? But it's talking about movement, right? From here to there. Okay. So our next water cooler chat is scary stories from fundraising. We're going to open up the floor. So I hope that you'll come and join us and share yours. It's one of those things we all love to do, right? Misery loves company, and we love telling the story about the time, that we were, we got stuck in this awful situation. I'll give you my scary story is my local habitat. We always struggle to find new properties that are on the bus line because real estate's so expensive downtown in Ithaca. We decided to take a look at a sheriff's auction for non-tax payment. And sure enough, if you look up Habitat for Humanity of Tompkins County, you will see that we were in the news while people stood on the porch of that home and said, no, you may not take these people's house away from them. So we have to have a special session and figure out how to work through this gently and carefully. So that's my example. If you have other examples, let me know. We can all think about Ron Schiller and his debacle from years ago. Okay. Oh, Is there a benefit to get an end of year snapshot or where they are for comparison? Yes. And that's what actually that's part of what Courtney's question is, right? Can I show people's RFMs changing? Because if I can show their RFMs changing from this bin to that bin, and if I'm jumping bins, then I'm showing the value of my program. But also when I go identify those people who jumped and those people who didn't, I can do a comparison. I can do modeling and I can do machine learning that talks about what made the change. Is it because of the way we solicited them, or is it because of who they are? Right. So, yeah. And actually, the most common snapshot that I take is what was my RFM just before I made my first major gift. Is it really 555 or was it something else? And the last time I did it was like a 232 or something was like the most common RFM, and then bam, they made a major gift. It's the same thing as what was my velocity of giving, or what was my giving increase versus decreases for a year before I made my major gift. That's a snapshot. Because we have the date of the first major gifts, we can take data from behind that, from before that, and build out a scenario, the scene of that, or the picture. I'm not even trying to make a 3-hour presentation on Power Query, and I'm losing language. So God love you, Greg, for showing up.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sitting here like I've got to get back to do that. Just in the background, everyone, I'm supposed to be doing next week a presentation at a conference on Power Excel, and I was supposed to have a data set 2 months ago. I got it on Sunday.
Yeah.
So
we're rapid turnaround artists because we don't like our clients.
Part of the reason I wanted to go to this RFM session was because I'm going to be using RFM in the presentation. Hey, I can do RFM and Power Excel. So
SPSS Modeler does have an automated RFM function. I teach RFM in one of the beginner R class, I think, or I saved it for the annual giving class that I haven't offered yet. I'm still building that class. So, and then again, I show it in Excel in a course as well. And if you look at any, analytics for annual giving sessions that I've given, if anybody's recorded it or if they have the PDF up, you'll see those slides again. Well, thanks everybody for coming.